Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me, again, is the Cranky Fan.
It's nice to see you again. Grump had a nice vacation in Chamonix in France and in Geneva, and then I got the flu on the way home. It was awful. I had 3 COVID tests, 1 out there, 2 here, and I thought I was dead, but just the flu, like the good old days, and you just get the flu. So today's the first day I'm actually sort of alive. So we wanted to get an episode in to talk about all the stuff that's happened in the last week. 'Cause I haven't talked to you guys in a while. I've had a couple of random tweets complaining about most things, but we want to get something off before the weekend hits, and more things happen concerning the Giants. So good to be back. Missed you, Grump.
Yeah, man, it's been a while since we've talked, and we haven't really talked about any of the moves that happened. I kind of had to do a lot of that on my own, which is fine. But, I mean, I really want your takes on this. So, like, some of this is recap from the last episode, but, like, most of this is going to be a little bit, well, first of all, it's going to be updated because we got some numbers came in since the last episode, some new moves came, and then we get your take on some stuff and not just my shitty opinion. So
to get 2 shitty opinions, that's great.
There you go.
And
it's the only thing better than one.
And I will apologize in advance for the infrequent to frequent coughing, sniffling, and whatever comes out of my orifices this episode. So
unacceptable.
We'll get through it.
Biggest news on the table. The Giants signed backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor. Now, going back to when we did our quarterbacks search, you had Tyrod Taylor as the top of tier 2, which were guys that you thought would legitimately push Daniel Jones for a starting position. Do you still feel that way?
Well, first of all, I'll give you credit because you mentioned him last year.
I like Tyrod Taylor as a backup for a young quarterback. I do, yeah.
I'm going to say I agree he's a guy who could push him, but I generally believe that this organization did not bring him in to push him. And I am in the firm belief that Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback. And this year, 2022, this season, is to determine if he's going to be your quarterback going forward. If you are going to franchise him after the season's over, to work out a long-term deal. Does he have it between the ears to be a starting quarterback in this league? Does he fit the scheme that we're trying to build around it? All of that is true. Bringing in a quarterback, I know the narrative is out there now that they should bring someone in to challenge him and to bring him in to push him. I don't understand why people think that's important, and I think that's silly, and I think it's detrimental, if anything. I mean, Daniel Jones is your quarterback. He's your quarterback. And I don't think he needs any added pressure of somebody breathing down his neck who's also taking first-team snaps from him. Because if you're bringing in a quarterback to push him, that means there's an expectation that he might be really in competition for the starting job. And that's not what we want. And I do not believe that's not what this front office and coaching staff have done. Now, to answer your question, could he be a tier 2 guy to be a starter? So if, Daniel Jones gets hurt and goes down, or he struggles mightily and he looks awful and he comes in, do I have confidence that he could play and, keep this team afloat? Absolutely, 100%. Because, I've said it before that I don't care about the record this year. And if Jones goes down, I'm all for being 4-12 and getting that first pick the year after and getting your real franchise quarterback. But I don't want this team to have happen what happened last year, where we became the laughing stock of the league. And being a laughing stock of the league means people lose their jobs when they maybe shouldn't have. I mean, Joe Judge lost his job because his team became a laughing stock. A lot of it wasn't his fault, and a lot of it was a perfect storm, but we became a laughing stock. We became the butt of jokes, causing changes to have to be made. And you don't want to be put in a position where you have a practice squad quarterback being your quarterback and just looking like he's never thrown a ball in his life, and having, a completely backup offensive line and all the things that's happening again. So I think I like the signing. I think it's great, but let's put it in perspective why he's here. He's here to be a very good backup quarterback. He's not there to push Daniel Jones.
I 100% agree with you. His 2022 cap hit is going to be under $3 million, but there's an $8 million dead. So he is here next year, this coming year. In 2023, it's about a $7 million cap hit with a $5.5 million dead. So he can be cut next year if need be. Now, I completely agree with you. I don't think that he is pushing Daniel Jones for the starting job. And the reason why is exactly what you said. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Either Daniel Jones is our future or he's not. But either way, Tyrod Taylor is not. So, and the only time you would bring in another quarterback to push, if he's not going to be the future in any sense of the word, is if you think you have a legitimate chance this year, or for the duration of his contract, to push into the playoffs and make something happen. And they're not that either. So really what Tyrod Taylor is a capable backup that can come in if Daniel Jones gets hurt, and you can continue to evaluate the rest of the team, and it doesn't become the clown show that it became last year when Jake Fromm couldn't throw a pass more than 20 yards. And the 2-year deal allows him to be a starter next year in the event that Daniel Jones is not retained. And again, continue to evaluate a roster. And if you draft a quarterback next year, he can start the year, and then eventually you can work in your drafted quarterback or not. I mean, he can take the whole year to develop them. There's no rush to force him out there.
Or you just have a really good backup quarterback. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having that in this league.
Sure.
And also,
well, I mean, I don't know that I buy that. I don't buy that. Because having a good backup quarterback yes, you're right that he is a good backup quarterback, probably the best backup quarterback you could get. But I mean, like, the only time you would really need that is if you are a legitimate contender of some kind with, you don't want to lose that momentum if your starting quarterback goes down. Yeah,
but let's go worst case scenario, and Daniel Jones is not here next year, and we have the number 3 pick, and we draft a quarterback, and we've seen it 100 times where a rookie comes in and he struggles, and they have to bench him for a couple weeks. He's just not ready to play, and maybe it's Trey Lance who needs a year to be ready before he can play. So maybe having that stability behind them for next year, I think, is very important if it's a transition year. Now, if Daniel Jones plays pretty well this year and the decision's made that he's going to be going forward, well, then the situation changes, and then you could see what you do with Taylor. You could cut him, you could trade him, you could do whatever, but let's worry about 2023. In 2023, the world will be completely different, in East Rutherford next year.
Are you happy with the signing?
Yeah. I guess, again, I am going to go with the belief that that's why they brought him in. I don't think there's any illusions of a competition or really even to push. I think he's there. I just think that, and this is, again, the mayors. I don't think, nobody was here in the building, from the last administration really anymore, but they don't want to go through again what happened last year where we were not prepared at the backup quarterback position. Mike Glennon fell off a cliff. I again, who knows if he got hurt or just the perfect storm of everybody hurt around him that made him be so horrible. But the expectation when the season started was Mike Glennon could be a decent enough backup quarterback. And I just think they wanted to make sure that we didn't fall into that position again where we had a noodle arm back there. So I'm happy with it. I think it's fine. I mean, you're going to have to spend money in this league to get relative quality. And I think this is,
I'm ecstatic it's not Mitchell Trubisky. That's it. I'm ecstatic it's not Mitchell Trubisky. Let's move on, though. Fuck that. I don't even want to entertain that idiot. The Giants signed four offensive linemen. They signed John Feliciano, who is being signed to play center. Apparently, he wants to play center, and previously has always been playing behind good centers, so he's played guard. They signed Mark Glowinski from the Indianapolis Colts. 3 years, $18 million. He's a guard. He played right guard there, about 30 years old. They signed Matthew Gano from Atlanta. That's like a 1-year contract, around $1 million. He's a tackle. And they re-signed Corey Cunningham, I think just today, Thursday. For last year, I mean, he served some time as a jumbo tight end. I think he also had some spurts at tackle with the injuries with Solder and everybody. So they've now beefed up the depth You know what I mean? They have one legitimate starter, they have one fringe starter, and then they have 2 depth guys added to a very, very, very barren offensive line. So while none of these guys jumped out to me, were like, yeah! I mean, all of these guys, all of them, they should be replaced through the draft probably, or some free agency stuff, in the coming years. But this year, next year, or the year after, all of them. All of them are stopgaps.
What they did was they bought some time, and they bought themselves a little flexibility. Again, this is not, we've said this 1,000 times in this show, and we'll say it 1,000 times to remind everybody, this is not a playoff team next year. The clock is not running for next year. They are not one offensive lineman away from winning the Super Bowl next year. Having said that, to bring in real quality, it takes time. It takes several drafts to build that complete offensive line. So they had to do something you saw the garbage we had last year, and they were able to get economical pieces. The first thing that jumped out to me when they made all these moves really quickly was there's no expectation you're going to see Nick Gates or Shane Lemieux anytime soon, right? I mean,
Shane Lemieux, I could see. I think Shane Lemieux.
They're not counting on either of them.
I don't think they're counting on anything other than Andrew Thomas. Period. Yeah. They're counting on Andrew Thomas to hold down that left tackle spot. But I think right now, the way things stand, they have a legitimate battle between Lemieux and Bredesen at left guard. I don't think they're expecting anything from Gates. I would caution fans to expect anything from him. If he ever comes back to football, I seriously doubt it's going to be this coming year. I would be super shocked if he does. So forget Nick Gates and forget Matt Parrott for that matter.
Yeah, I mean they're basically moving forward as if they have nothing because kind of in all intents and purposes they had nothing. So that's
but none of that stuff wipes off the table getting a guard in the draft that will be immediately better than Lemieux or Bredesen. There's nothing wiping that. But see, if they don't do that, they can function with one of those 2 guys there. They're going to add stuff to the offensive line. Whether it's left guard or not is kind of up to however the draft falls now. But if it falls in a way in which they can't get a left guard that's going to beat out either of those guys, they can function with one of those guys so long as they continue to upgrade whenever they can.
Right.
Wherever they can, I should say.
Yeah, because what they're doing is they're taking away the sense of desperation in this draft.
Yes.
Like, we have to get a guard with one of these 2 picks. Now they've given themselves a little bit of flexibility, a little bit more maneuverability. They may be a little more interested in listening to a trade if the right offer comes around. They don't have to because they have nobody. They got stuff, and you're right. Everybody that we signed in the last week or so will probably not be on this roster at the beginning of the 2024 season, maybe not even next year.
Correct.
Hopefully it won't. I mean, they draft well this year, they draft well next year. None of these guys are here anymore, or they're just depth guys.
In about a year, you're going to want Glowinski to lose his job. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a quality guy to have. He's not great. He's not amazing. He's fine. He's steady.
But if you look at teams with elite offensive lines, a guy like him is, he's a swing guy who's off the bench.
Correct. Let's switch to tight end. The Giants had cut Caden Smith. They waived him injured. And they Wednesday night, signed Ricky Seals-Jones from the Washington Commanders on a likely 1-year deal for about $1 million. To me, this is kind of a swap. I mean, both of these guys to me are fringe tight end 2 guys.
Well, he's healthier.
Well, yeah. So the rumors that I started to hear was that Caden Smith's knee was a lot worse than a lot of people thought.
Right.
And that seems to be... I think that was a major factor in letting him go.
Well, at least, again, you have to crawl before you can walk and then run. Is it when we did our tight end review a few weeks back? Yep. We said there's nobody on the roster. Everybody's either, going to be cut or is a restricted or unrestricted free agent. They won't be back. So you have to start with getting bodies in there. And again, you have somebody in now that you don't have to, reach, even if it's the 4th round or 5th round to get a tight end. You don't have to worry to get a body in there. So again, these are moves kind of on the margins, but they are, for what they are, quality guys that are stopgap guys, professionals that know how to do their job that we hope will be replaced in the near future with younger talent, cheaper talent for the long haul.
Yeah, and it was a couple of weeks ago we did that project episode to try and cut $40 million. You cut Caden Smith, and I didn't. You were saving about $2.5 million, and I was like, well, I don't want to leave the tight end room completely barren. And in my head at the time, that made sense. And now I'm looking at it, and it still makes sense, but this makes just as much sense. If you're going to have to... Saving Caden Smith does not change the fact that they will need to completely overhaul the tight end room. You might as well cut him because he's hurt, save $2.5 million, and you're still going to overhaul the tight end position, but now it's a full priority. Signing Ricky Seals-Jones pretty much replaces Caden Smith and brings you right back to where you were for a little bit less. You're still going to have to overhaul it, but they kind of replaced him a little bit with a guy like Ricky Seals-Jones, who's really tall and a good. He's an okay hands guy, but
yeah. Well, I mean, we had Evan Ingram who had no hands. So.
Yeah. I mean, they're about the same. He blocks just as bad, but you know what?
I mean,
he's like I said, he's a fringe tight end 2 guy. He really should be a tight end 3, but you know. We can function with him at tight end 2. Mm-hmm. Let's flip really quickly to some of the latest news on defense. The Giants have cut Logan Ryan, interestingly enough, saving under $1 million. From what I'm hearing or seeing, I think it was like Tom Rock or Dan Duggan, one of those two, that it was simply one of those things where it's like he was kind of around for his intangibles and they just don't see him as being that guy for them, you know. And he's part of the old regime, really.
Intangibles are in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
you know.
This is a curious move. I don't.
Did we both? What did we say when we did our?
We both kept him because the dead hit is garbage. I mean, like it took away everything. He saved basically nothing by getting rid of him. Giants fans immediately thought that this meant that they were going to go after Kyle Hamilton in the draft. As usual, everything has to be solved with a first-round pick whenever we make a move. Look, I would love to have Kyle Hamilton. He is something else. He is the best safety in this class. I also don't think that safety is such a huge need that we need to replace it with the best guy, whatever. And also, he's not the best safety I've ever seen. I don't think he ranks anywhere near like the Sean Taylors of the NFL history world. And
yeah, but those guys are like, you know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we're talking about top 10 pick here. I don't know that I want to spend 5 or 7 on not just I don't want to pigeonhole him as a safety, but I don't think I want to spend that on him. Period.
I agree.
And I don't think this increases that need at all. You know, they're going to get a safety. They need a safety. Having Julian Love and Xavier McKinney is not enough.
And again, if you're talking about a safety that we all thought was hanging around for the intangibles, that means it's probably.
I mean, he's a good player anyway. He's not terrible. I don't think he's bad.
He's close to the replacement level. You can go out there and find that guy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's near the end of his career.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that this changes too much, other than it guarantees that they'll take a safety in the draft or some level of DB that can transition to safety or something like that.
Or we'll see what happens on cut down days or the other ways you can pick up guys, but they will acquire one somehow.
And interestingly enough, the Giants were not able to trade James Bradberry before the 4 p.m. deadline to get under the cap, so they had to make other moves to make that happen. From what I understand, they are still shopping him and trying to get his contract off the books. Right now, they don't have enough money to sign any draft picks, so they're going to have to figure something out. And if they were to get rid of the $12 million cap hit from him, they would, in that one move, be able to sign everybody. So they're still shopping him. I wouldn't be terribly upset if he stays on the roster for this year.
I kept him on my list.
I mean, I did too.
And again, the reasons we talked about, where we felt how important this secondary was going to be in this defense. A blitz-happy defense, and we thought it'd be important to have as fortified as you can back there. So that was my reason for keeping him. So
yeah, and just because he's better at zone doesn't mean he's not a good man play. I mean, he's a good corner. He's a very good corner.
Can they still offer a restructure with him?
I'm just assuming that they have to be so far apart on that it's just not going to happen. Otherwise, it would have happened already. Maybe I'm wrong, but. I mean, it's still open right now. My biggest fear with corners, and we're going to do our next episode is our cornerback episode, so I don't want to go too in depth on this, but as a general rule, I would rather pay for corners than draft them in the first round. Just generally speaking. I think it is so difficult to
get a return on your investment.
Yeah, yeah. And we said this before, that some of the best corners in the league, weren't good until their second or third year, which is most of their rookie contract. So you're paying for a guy who's not good. You know, like an impact edge player, maybe he gets better, but the impact edge player,
basically.
Yeah, like the impact edge guys are impact year one. I mean, even Azeez Ojulari was good year one. That is a round 2 edge player. You know what I'm saying? Like the round 1 corners, not all of them are impact players right away. It takes some time.
Maybe I'll do a little research for the episode. I'll go back over the last, I don't know how many years, how many cornerbacks were drafted in their first round and how many of them signed a second deal with the same team.
Yeah, or just see when they got their Pro Bowl level, how far into their first contract and how many of them busted. I mean, guys like D. Milliner, I mean, these are first round corners. It feels like every year they bust. So it just seems to have a high bust rate.
I mean, would you consider a guy who's not signed to a second contract a bust, or just? I guess there's rare instances where they just become superstars and you can't afford them, but I think you make every effort to try to.
They don't sign any second contract, or with the same team.
Same team.
I mean, it depends on the circumstances. I mean, like, you might be able to sign.
More often than not. I mean, the majority of the time would be probably because the guy's a bust. Well, let's think of the Giants. The last several cornerbacks they've had.
Eli Apple. Is he a bust?
I mean,
I would say
with us.
I think he counts as a bust because I don't think he's a first round talent.
Yeah, I think he's had a little bit of a career resurgence of more like infamy more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple good games on a very good defense in the postseason. He's not a good player, so
and he may not be back next year with them. So
he's definitely not back with them.
Right.
Well,
right.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe we can do that.
Yeah, I'll do a little research.
You want to go around the league? I didn't do anything around the league when I did my
episode. Go around the league in the last week or so.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was Saturday. We were in Geneva watching soccer. My Tottenham Spurs were playing Man U, and all of a sudden they showed in a luxury box Tom Brady. And I thought that was really interesting because we weren't watching the match here in America, which would have been like NBC Sports or something with their feed. This was Sky Sports out of Britain. So I'm like, why the hell would they show Tom Brady? Like, do people in England even know who Tom Brady is? The very next day, Tom Brady unretires. Now, the link, I'm sure most of you people know, Tom Brady was at Man U, who's owned by the Glazers, who also own the Bucks. So is it possible or likely that those conversations were having while he was over there? Most likely. So I don't know how much of you guys also watch soccer and were watching that live, and if the American feed even showed Brady and the box or not. But it was very interesting how that all kind of played out. And I guess the only thing I have for you, Grump, is are you surprised by any of this with Brady coming back? Or are you surprised he's coming back with the Bucks?
I'm surprised he's coming back with the Bucks because that was my first question: is what does that mean? Is he just like on the market? And it's like, oh, like I had to I was talking to my boss. I was like, he's out of retirement, whatever. But where is he? And they're like, no, they're all wearing Bucks uniforms in the picture or whatever. I was like, seriously? I mean, I guess it makes sense. Right now, all the best quarterbacks are in the AFC with the exception of Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, him just returning to an NFC team almost guarantees him like an NFC divisional round.
Mm-hmm. Sure, if he stays. You know, I think ever since he had announced he's retiring, I thought that was a play for him to go somewhere else. I think that you look at the Bucks roster, you look at their salary cap, and I get it. Now that he's back, all of a sudden, all the names are coming out of the woodwork who want to go sign with the Bucks and everything. But I really thought he tried to make a play to get his rights traded to like San Francisco, and I think the Bucks rightly called him on it and said, "We're not trading you." And maybe now that now he's saying he's not retired, maybe they'll work out something. I mean, in the long-term interest of the Bucks, does it make more sense for them to trade him for assets? I mean, the guy is still 45. This roster is not going to be the same that it was. They got to re-sign, I think, 3 or 4 offensive linemen. You know,
I would think that it would be worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really think that they're making a run with. I mean, I guess technically they have a shot just because the NFC is so whack. But
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, they drafted Kyle Trask. They know better than us what his situation is. But I would be interested to see where he's at. You know what I mean? Like, I know that Kyle Trask is like the experience level is huge drop, but like he was prolific at Florida. I mean, it's not like he was playing in the Sun Belt Conference.
He was prolific at Florida, but I don't know if he has the arm strength to make all the throws in the NFL. Like, a guy, the Gators have had in the past, they've had Shane Matthews and they've had Danny Werfel, guys that, all SEC quarterbacks, even a Heisman Trophy quarterback. Tim Tebow, another guy, don't have those NFL arms that makes every one of those throws that you have to. And also, his experience level is way, way lower because he never played in high school.
I know.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, I don't really care what the lineage of Florida quarterbacks not having arm strength. That was a high-powered Florida offense that he was part of, and some of those throws to Kyle Pitts were not 10-yard throws. You know what I mean?
Right, but I'm saying though that the difference between college and the pros is pretty significant. We're talking about high-poweredness with a quarterback.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, if the Bucs are, let's put it this way: if Brady really was retiring and he was not coming back, and they were just going to decide we're going to rebuild, I think they would have tried it out Kyle Trask and see.
That's what I would think. Right?
I think so. I think.
So maybe they're going to do some cap maneuvering to get some guys back. Shady void year things.
With them. I still there's something in the back of my mind that tells me that when the season starts, that Brady's going to be with San Francisco.
Yeah, and he would stay in the NFC, so that would make sense to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Aaron Rodgers, signed a massive deal to stay in Green Bay. I don't really have any take on that other than he's probably the best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah, and then the whole drama for the last year was, he wanted to leave because they weren't building a team around him, and what do they do today?
They dumped Devontae Adams to where did he go?
The Raiders.
The Raiders, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure that probably went over well with. Do
we know what they got in return?
The episode will be pretty interesting to listen to.
Oh my God! You were saying that the drama with Aaron Rodgers over the last couple of years was about building the team. What wasn't part of the drama with Aaron Rodgers over the last couple of years? He's become at least what I feel like is that the perception of him generally was that he was a good guy that everybody really kind of liked until the last couple of years. He's just slowly lost that reputation.
He's just become a dick. I mean, it's just really just kind of like the arrogance about him, the fact that it came out that he doesn't get along with his family, the whole, just odd comments, the fact how he lied about getting vaxxed, all these different things add up to a guy.
He was dating Olivia Munn and screwed that up. She's super hot.
Like he's almost trying to be like a wrestling heel now, like on purpose.
Oh, and man, I would probably pay more attention to him if he was the next the Triple H of the NFL.
Yeah. So whatever. I
mean, do you think that getting rid of Devontae Adams means that a Kenny Golladay trade is potentially possible?
Sure. I mean, that's an absolute win now team.
Would you do it?
Would I trade Kenny Golladay
to Green Bay? Say you get a second round pick for him.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I like Kenny Golladay here. I think he's great. But I mean, I think his window of being dominant in the NFL or a number one receiver is limited to the contract he just signed. I think by the end of that contract, he will not be a number one wide receiver in the NFL. Right. So are we going to be competitive during that contract? I don't know.
His value for this team is his ability, what we can get back for him, and also that cap space kind of clawed back to us.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be the biggest hurdle.
And that's to me, I mean, if we were in a different situation, if this was an 8-8 team, no, probably not. But, something
right.
If, we didn't see the greatest chemistry with him and Daniel Jones last year, when the rare times they played together. I mean, we don't owe anything to him to keep him around. He's not, he's our number one. He's our wide receiver one, but it doesn't really feel like it. Like it hardly. Like, do you when you're just subconsciously thinking about the Giants offense and you think, who's our wide receiver? Do you instantly think Kenny Galladay? I still think like Sterling Shepard or another guy.
My brain goes directly to Galladay and Tony personally, because that to me is like the best.
Yeah. And so I if they say a second round pick right now, we can get off of that cap, because again, this is a rebuild, this team, and we're not trying to win this year. You know, the window isn't right now. I would absolutely consider it.
Yeah, and I think with the amount of cap that we'd be able to dump, we'd be able to sign another wide receiver in addition to drafting one. And I think, quite frankly, I don't think Brian Daboll needs a alpha number one big dick wide receiver in his offense. I think he can throw numbers game of wide receivers, right? You get like 6 guys that are speedy or whatever, and he can make an offense work out of it.
And also, you said alpha. You know, he's an alpha guy too. I mean, how long did it take before you got in the fight with Jason Garrett? Was it week 2?
Yeah, something like that. I don't have a problem with him being an alpha guy, though. I have no issue with that personally.
I know, but you know something? I think
he's not Dez Bryant. He's not a diva. He's just an alpha. That's fine.
I understand, but is this team ready for an alpha?
No. You know what? They need fucking alphas. This team needs alphas. We don't have an alpha at quarterback, right? I mean, we
need the right alpha. We need alphas that aren't look at me first alphas, and I think guys like, and I'm not saying he's necessarily someone like a T.O. or no, I don't think Antonio Brown type of me first alpha, but that was definitely an alpha move he pulled last year with Garrett. It took 2 weeks before it happened. And then if he has another
fucking
season,
good riddance too. I mean, I'm sure whatever he was saying is probably fucking right based on everything I saw last year.
That's very possible. But what happens next? What happens this year? Again, if Jones is struggling, the offense is struggling, it takes a while to get out of the gate. Is there going to be another situation again with him where it's like, is it really constructive alpha? Is there just frustration alpha? And I the whole point of this is, this team needs such a fresh start with everything.
Yeah.
That we don't need that necessarily.
Yeah. I do want to walk back a little bit. I've said very defiantly that we don't have an alpha at quarterback. I do think that Daniel Jones is a good leader, but he doesn't walk in the room the way, I don't know. Who would you say is like an alpha quarterback that just walks in the room and he just, like Aaron Rodgers, I would say, is probably an alpha quarterback. Like going back to when he was drafted.
Burrow.
Joe Burrow. Yeah, another guy.
That is an alpha with a capital A, and he was at LSU, and he's right now is as well. 100%.
Yeah. But I do think, I would say Russell Wilson's probably an alpha quarterback. I'm sure he's in there getting, I think even Patrick Mahomes is another guy that, he walks into the room and, his input is boldly spoken and discussed. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore.
I did a bad segue. I was talking about Russell Wilson as far as the trade. Any thoughts about that?
Any thoughts about that? Hilarious tweet game between with Denver. I don't know what Seattle's social media guy did before he got fired there, where he thought it would be hilarious to post a GIF from Castaway screaming for Wilson, but Denver's response is fantastic. Him going to Denver immediately makes the AFC West the best group of quarterbacks in a single division I've seen in a long time.
You're right. I can't even think of one.
Yeah, I really can't. That said, I don't know. I guess. Well, Drew Lock went to Seattle. Do we think that Seattle is not, like, they're going to make a QB move this year? Maybe
they may just deal with Drew Lock this year and
deal with it
build
next
towards
year.
The future. Yeah. I guess the biggest thing I was interested in with the trade was, well, what did they end up getting for him? And that deal, again, we never would have done it, but I'll make it just out there official. If you are the Giants GM, will you giving up all that for Russell Wilson?
Well, what was the entire haul?
2 first-round picks. So number 9 this year, a 2023 first-rounder, 2 second-round picks. This year's 5th-round pick, a tight end, Drew Lock, and a defensive end.
Oh, yeah, and Shelby.
Yeah.
Would we have given up all of that for Russell Wilson? No, because we're nowhere near competing. Denver seems to think. I'm sure Vic Fangio is fucking fuming that Russell Wilson is there now after they
and
fired
we can't
him.
afford him. I mean, where are we going to fit that cap?
Well, yeah, Russell Wilson was always going to be a pie in the sky. What is this? It's like a $40 million crazy ass hit for this year. There's no way.
Let's remember, Grump, how this whole thing started and why, again, fans listen to what they want to hear. What happened was Russell Wilson said, I don't want to be traded, but if I did, here's a list of 5 teams I consider going to. And people immediately turned that and spun it into Giants have interest in Russell Wilson. We never had interest in him. There was a I don't know what his plan was for doing that, but he put us on his list. That's all it ever was. It all it ever became.
And it was really just because we were located in the city.
Exactly. That's for his wife. So, again, it's not like we lost out on the sweepstakes. It wasn't like we tried and failed. We just never were going to go that way. And it was just only because he is interested in us that people, again, thought it was we're trying to get him. Because I had more people in the last 6 months ask me, so you think the Giants are getting Russell Wilson? Are you really trying to get him? Like, no.
Yeah.
Zero
There's
chance.
just I never thought there was anything more than like a 3% chance.
I thought it was a 0.0.
Well, if I'm being completely honest, I never think anything is a 0% chance. If I'm being totally honest. So 3% is about as low as I go.
To me, it was 0% because of A, our situation.
Yeah.
B, his age. C, how much you'd have to give up. And D, how much he costs. I mean, that equals to me 0.
So what I think is funnier is that Denver also they acquired Randy Gregory. The Dallas Cowboys announced that he was re-signed, and about 5 minutes later, Denver, with their surprise, that social media guy, by the way, is getting raised.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And apparently, what I saw was, and I don't know how true this is that Dallas tried to switch something in the contract at the final minute, and Gregory just walked away from the table.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just because that's the Cowboys. It's just like, don't let anybody in life try to pull a fast one on you, whether you are a defensive end in the NFL or you are trying to negotiate your first job out of college or whatever you do. Don't let anybody fuck you and try to think they can at the last minute. Have the guts.
Be careful with your wording now. I used an F word while quote tweeting Adam Schefter, and now I can't fucking see him for a week. So on the most important period of fucking time to be following Adam Schefter on Twitter, I can't. And it was because I quote tweeted and used a bad word when I did it. And what I was quote tweeting was the rule proposal change for overtime. So I think it was like the Eagles and maybe one other team. I don't know because I can't look now.
I think it was the Titans.
Okay. No, two teams proposed that overtime rules be changed so that both teams get a chance to possess the ball. The Titans' proposal was that both teams get a chance to possess the ball unless the team that scores the touchdown first also gets a 2-point conversion. Then the game is over. And my take on that is that is such a shitty middle ground that it's pointless. Forget that. If people are gonna bitch about this overtime, then just change it to so that both teams get the ball and just shut the fuck up about it. I'm over complaining about it.
People have one major grief with the NFL overtime rules. It's not fair for both teams. Both teams don't have an equal shot. I don't understand.
That proposal doesn't fix it.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem. It's like, something. If I have Aaron Rodgers, or I have Pat Mahomes, or I have Jesus Christ as my quarterback, he's sitting there on the sideline watching his defense give up a touchdown and then give up a 2-point conversion. The same problem occurred. This league has mutated in the last 20 years to be an offensive league, a passing offensive league. Rules have changed. Rules are enforced different ways. Play formations they're all different now. They're all set up to score, offense, excitement. And you have to make it fair. You have to give most teams spend more money. The position they spend the most is quarterback. And they spend the second most on left tackle.
To protect him.
Wide receiver. If you're the Giants, you draft a running back second. But, the point is that teams build their strengths are on offense, and you're not solving any problem by doing that. And I just think it's stupid. It's not. It's to me, it's as silly as moving back the extra point. You're not solving a problem you think you have. You're just trying to make it more exciting. That doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, I should have waited to talk to you about this before taking my anger out on Twitter. Whatever.
Well, I'll block you anyway. Don't worry about
There
it.
you go. Nice.
Cool.
That's gonna kind of do it for our quick news wrap up. I'm happy to have the Cranky Fan back, my co-host, the Robin to my Batman, not the Adam West Batman.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be the Michael Keaton one.
So our next episode will be next week, unless something catastrophic happens, something really, really newsworthy. It will be our regular Tuesday slot, and we're going to be going over the cornerback position, our current Giants cornerbacks, our free agent market of cornerbacks, and the draft. And we will be back in full swing with our scheduled positional, overview as we head towards the draft. So be sure to like, subscribe, whatever, all those things on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and of course YouTube, where you can view this and see our wonderful faces as we get older.
Grump, I'm looking at the calendar over here. The draft's only 5 weeks away. 5 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, man, it's about a month.
It's also
so we
my
have
anniversary, so I better get on the ball with that too. So
yeah. I have a shitload of work to do, and so that means there will be a shitload of content. So, like I said, be sure to follow. Also on Twitter, our ats are right there, at @football_grump, at the Cranky Fan. And we will see you all next time.
Go
Giants.